Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Pad Paramahansa Paravijikacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravijikacharya Ashtotar to Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So just a reminder to those who arrived later, there's no artik, there's no darshan tonight. Okay, and you know that tapas, right? Okay. And since I'll probably forget, can you send me the new passcode for the, isn't there a new passcode for the internet here? Yeah, just remind, maybe, yeah, text it to me or whatever. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of June 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 9 entitled The Most Confidential Knowledge, and we're studying text 6 tonight. Yatakasha Stito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Mat Staniti Upadarya Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya. Go ahead, David. Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya. Prabhu. Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya. Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya. Everybody. Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya. Yatakashastito Nityam Vayu Sarvatra Gomahan Tata Sarvani Bhutani Matstani Upadharya. Yata, just as Akashastitaha, situated in the sky, Nityam, always, Vayuhu, the wind, Sarvatra Gaha, blowing everywhere, Mahan, great, Tata, similarly, Sarvani Bhutani, all created beings, Matstani, situated in me, Iti, thus, Upadharya, try to understand. Translation, Lord Krishna says, understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. Purport. For the ordinary person, it is almost inconceivable how the huge material creation is resting in him. But the Lord is giving an example which may help us to understand. The sky may be the biggest manifestation we can conceive of, and in that sky, the wind or air is the biggest manifestation in the cosmic world. The movement of the air influences the movements of everything. But although the wind is great, it is still situated within the sky. The wind is not beyond the sky. Similarly, all the wonderful cosmic manifestations are existing by the supreme will of God, and all of them are subordinate to that supreme will. As we generally say, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, everything is moving under His will. By His will, everything is being created, everything is being maintained, and everything is being annihilated. Still, he is aloof from everything, as the sky is always aloof from the activities of the wind. In the Upanishads it is stated, Yad Bisha Vata Pavate. It is out of the fear of the Supreme Lord that the wind is blowing. Taittiriya Upanishad 281. In the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 389 it is stated, Etasya va aksharasya prashasane gargi surya chandramasao vidvitao tishtata etasya va aksharasya prashasane gargi dhyav aprativyao vidvitao tishtataha. By the supreme order, under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the moon, the sun, and the other great planets are moving. In the Brahma Samhita 552 also it is stated, Yat chaksharesha sabita sakhalagrahanam rajasamasta sudamurti rashesha tejaha yasyagya brahmati samritakala chakro govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. This is a description of the movement of the sun. It is said that the sun is considered to be one of the eyes of the Supreme Lord, and that it has immense potency to diffuse heat and light. Still, it is moving in its prescribed orbit by the order and the supreme will of Govinda. So from the Vedic literature we can find evidence that this material manifestation, which appears to us to be very wonderful and great, is under the complete control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will be further explained in the later verses of this chapter. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So Krishna consciousness is a combination of, in our understanding of the Supreme Lord, combination of the majesty, the greatness, the inconceivable power of God, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but set off, by contrast, by a very intimate understanding of his pastimes and his relation with us. The whole point of Bhakti Yoga is to reawaken that original bhakti for Krishna. What is that bhakti? Bhakti, if you look it up in the dictionary, it just doesn't mean loving devotion. It means an exchange. It's the loving devotion and the reciprocation you feel from that loving devotion. That's bhakti, both going on. So that's a very personal and intimate relationship with Krishna. When we read the Krishna book, when we read Nectar of Devotion, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the emphasis is on that wonderful and unique relationship that every soul has with Krishna. And they can be, as we know, there's these different rasas. Rasa, when you first encounter that word, Prabhupada says, yes, my spiritual master explains it like a mellow. Oh, wait a minute. Mellow is not even a noun in English. What does that mean? It doesn't really explain much. But it's the feeling, and it's interesting that rasa also has the meaning of a liquid. It's a flow, So it's a flow of emotion to God and feeling the reciprocation from God. And we have the perverted reflection, the reflection in our own lives. Otherwise, how can you have any life? Even with the inanimate things. Like there's this one rasa called Shanta Ras. You may know if you know the rasa, the Shanta Ras, Dasya Ras, Sanjaras, Dasya Ras, and then Sakya Ras, and Vatsalya Ras, and then of course Madhurya Ras. So this Shanta Ras is kind of on the border of Bhakti. Bhakti really begins at Dasya Ras. But still, welcome, Hare Krishna Guru. The Shanta Ras is there in the spiritual world. It said like Krishna's flute is in the Shanta Ras. It just waits. It's not actively serving, but then it's ready to be used by Krishna in a very wonderful way. The ground, in Goloka Vrindavan. Hare Krishna, welcome. You got my email. Okay. She wanted to get the poetry, so I sent the poetry and a few other things too. So anyway, the point is everything is related to Krishna, But that's what's being said here and in other ways, Everything rests in Krishna, it's subject to his will. It's, and also we've had in this chapter, and especially in chapter 7, we learn that everything we see is like an energy. Normally in our ordinary discourse in English, energy means, fire or electricity or something like that. But this table is not energy, but in Bhakti Yoga you understand, yes, this is also Krishna's energy. This is, Bhumar Apo Analo Vayo, the bhumi, the solid matter is also Krishna's energy. So where is there not Krishna? He's all pervading as the super soul in every atom. He's all pervading through his energies. He's there personally in Goloka Vrindavan. He's manifest in so many different forms. So Krishna is really everywhere in some form. Our problem is that we forget that. We forget that everything is actually connected to the divine. Because we want to try to utilize that for our own purposes. We want to be the controllers and the enjoyers of the material energy, then that's what Maya covers us. So we can play that game, but then learn the lesson that it's not a winning game. That we're not really the controllers nor the enjoyers. We're completely dependent for every breath on Krishna. We can't live for a moment without God. So that your whole orientation changes. What's real success in life? Well, it begins with, real success begins with not having to take another birth. Because as soon as you have to take another birth, that's defeat. You've been defeated. And I think I shared this verse recently in the class, but in the 5th canto, Lord Rishabhdev has a wonderful lesson that he's giving his sons. They always have 100 sons. I don't know, it's a lot of poor ladies have 100 sons. But anyway, it's a lot of sons. Anyway, they're all sitting there, and Bharat is there, the chief Bharat, who will, of course, be married and then take sannyas early, and then he turns into a deer. There's a whole pastime there. But he's giving them this final instruction by which they're meant to live and mold their lives, And so within those instructions, it goes on for maybe 20 verses, but there's 3 verses that he gives as a instruction all in of itself, So the first verse is a famous verse. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya pritaya apanoti. He says, certainly, those who are simply after sense gratification in this world, which is mode of passion covered, they're mad. They're mad. Why? Because if that's your only motivation, you're bound to perform vikarma. Vikarma is activity that's completely against the Vedic culture and morality, and is sure to bring you in a lot of suffering. But any kind of fruitive activity, even if it's very pious, it still means you're going to take another birth to get the result of that karma. So that's also not so good. But here he says vikarma. Nunampamakta kurate vikarma yadindriya priteya apanoti, for the sake of indriya priti, which literally means sense gratification, indriya priti. He says, nasaru manye, my opinion is not very wise, not a very good thing to do. Because by that, yata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeya. One is sure to get another body which, though temporary, brings misery, for sure. Kleshada asadeha, the body. So then the next verse describes this idea of defeat. Parabhavas, that word means defeat. Defeat, why? Because you can take another birth. You're defeated in your human mission. Then you have to start all over again, And you can go on for many, many births in subhuman bodies or even superhuman bodies if you don't get the proper association, the clue to something which is not at all obvious. That behind everything is this supreme will and the supreme person, that everything is infused with God's energy, That's not at all obvious. You could easily go through life as a human being, or certainly lower, and not have a clue. So that's defeat, if you get it. Parabhavas tavat abodha jato. Yavana jigyatasatmatatam. As long as you not come to the point of inquiring into the truth of the soul and God and relationship, you see, those things which you need higher instruction in order to even intuit, you're sure to be defeated by taking another birth and not going. Parabhavas tavat abodha jato. That defeat is born of ignorance. It's born of your ignorance of the soul and what your mission in life is and all these things. Everything that we thought was so important and everything before we discovered Krishna consciousness. That's the ignorance. Even the so-called education, higher education, Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings a song, which I don't know the Bengali to, says, all of this higher education, material education just buries you more and more in the clutches of Maya. It doesn't really, it's an illusion that that's some kind of success. So, Yavan jigyasata tattvam. That word jigyasa should ring a bell. That's the second word of the whole Vedanta Sutra. Atato Brahma jigyasa. Now, therefore, having come to the human form of life, you should inquire into Brahman. What is that Brahman? That's answered in the second sutra. Janmad yasya yataha, which are the first words of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Janmad yasya yatonvayad tatatashtartesh, and he makes a very long verse describing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So inquire into Brahman. What is Brahman? That from which everything has come, which maintains everything, and ultimately which destroys everything. And it's not an inanimate. We understand that's a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he says as much in the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavatam. Just like the Gita has these 4 critical verses in the next chapter, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, where Krishna says, what's the essence of it? I am God. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pravartate. That's the essence. It's the same thing as the Vedanta Sutra. From I am the source of everything, everything comes from me. That's Janmad yasya yataha, you see? And he goes on describing how my devotees are always glorifying me, and like that. There's important 4 verses. So the failure to inquire, just like you come to the class, well, you want to learn something. This is important to learn. It's not, you can find it here because we're discussing from the book and the atmosphere and everything. Although, by the way, those who came late, there won't be any darshan tonight because they're painting the deities. I guess everyone knows that. Okay. So we thought we can extend the class a little because we always run out of time. We won't run out of time. We can go on and on, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever you want. Hare Krishna, just kidding. There will be prasadam though, so. All right, so going back to the verse here. Here he's giving an analogy. Yata tata. This is a common way. Yata akash is as the air, this vast atmosphere, is resting within ether, within space. Akash. What is akash? In the sky, situated in the sky. You see, always. What is situated? The vayu, the air is blowing. Huge amount of air, these forces we can't imagine, the tornadoes and the hurricanes and all that stuff is going on. The air is moving, but it's resting within the larger sky. That's the point. Similarly, all living beings are situated within me. Now, how are we situated? Well, we're each sitting here in a material body, but that material body is made up of Krishna's energy, right? And he has engineered the whole manifestation of this. And how that happens, I think we're getting a little of that in the early morning class with Prahlad Maharaj. He's talking about the Mahatattva and how the Mahavishnu is glancing and all the living entities coming in, and it's beginning things. So it's a very wonderful explanation. But the thing to remember that at every step there's an intelligence behind it, and whenever there's an intelligence, there's the person, the Supreme Person. At every step, the wind is blowing. Someone is blowing it. There's a demigod who, the Vayu, I mentioned the word Vayu is here, who is in charge, a deputy of Krishna's. It's a vast government. And it's so perfectly arranged that the tastikayam karanam cha vidyate, that Krishna doesn't have to do anything. Everything is done by his energies and expansions, So then what is he going to do? Play the flute, dance with Radharani? You see that? Why wouldn't it? Just imagine, just think for a minute. If you were God, what would you do? Wouldn't you arrange things that you could just have fun all day? And then whatever had to be done, the deputies would do it. Don't distract me. Narayan, you do this. Mahavishnu, please create the universe like that. You know what to do. And then Krishna's free to play. But that's where we want to go ultimately. We want to be in a situation where every moment is filled with blissful adventure in relationship to Krishna. That's really the ultimate. We're trying to imitate that now. You know, whenever we want, okay, you got to work, you know, can pay the rent, you know, but then comes weekend, you know, we can play and we can do this and, you know, have a great time. Then we got to go back to work, you know. But that, you know, it never is completely fulfilling. And ultimately, it covers our real knowledge. That enjoying spirit in competition with Krishna, then we can't be devotees of Krishna. We're competing with him in our own, you know, helpless and pathetic way. But still, that mentality is called Maya, you know, being in Mayan illusion. But when we accept the instruction of the Lord through his representatives and through the book, you know, it's said in the CC, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the super soul, Krishna is there. He's, as you know, in his plenary portion as the super soul or the Paramatma. And what does he do? Well, he says right in the 15th chapter, Sarvasya Chamriti Sanavisto Mata Smritir Jnanam Aponancha. From me are coming remembrance, knowledge, and also forgetfulness. You see? So he's trying to instruct us, give us good instruction, but we can't hear him in our present state. We're too much focused on externals. You know, trying to enjoy this, trying to get away from that. You know, it's very, very complicated, our consciousness. So, but he doesn't want to give up. So he comes externally as the guru, the acharya, who's personified and whose mission in life is to enlighten as many people who will be receptive to it, to join the party, to come back to Godhead. And what is he doing? He is preaching or teaching these words of Krishna. That's what Prabhupada is here. He's manifested as the purports. You know, we're associating with Srila Prabhupada in the most important way through the words that he's teaching. So the Super Soul comes externally as the Shastra and the Guru to teach us. We have to take advantage of it. And that's what we're doing here. So he's describing how, now this also helps us if we see the world now through the eyes of the Shastra. That's called Shastra Chakshu, to have the eyes of Shastra. We see, okay, now, you know, Krishna's, the whole world, or the whole, my perception of it, you know, I understand now that every inch of it, every little milligram, you know, millimeter, is under Krishna's control and the will, and here's a manifestation. I feel the breeze coming off that's like Krishna says, the Vayu is resting within the sky, is moving, you see. And that's all part of Krishna's plan, you know, to sustain the earth. Now, just a note here, because, I mean, who can be here? Does everyone here believe in climate change? Good. I think it's pretty obvious now that that's going on. There's still a whole bunch of people who are trying to, can you imagine? Thinking, no, there's no climate change. It's just a natural way things are. Yeah, of course, the climate may change naturally, but it can also change unnaturally by anthropogenic climate change. So, there's so many things that we can be distracted by, but if we become strong enough in Krishna consciousness, then even the so-called distractions we'll see as manifestations of Krishna. We'll see that yeah, this is not something I want to get entangled with. I want to keep my mind on Krishna, and that because, and I'll give you one little poem. This is a verse from an Ashtaka, 8 verses about the holy name. Written, and we didn't know who wrote them for a long time. We thought it was anonymous. Called the Kevala Ashtaka. Kevala means only, solely. 8 verses about the holy name being all to be. The famous verse, some of you know. You know, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatadanyata. If you want to achieve the supreme goal in life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a strong-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever under your lotus feet bow. So this Kevalashtaka is inspired by that verse, and it's all about the holy names. So one of the verses goes like this. Every verse ends with the line, the holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. Hari is Krishna. Why is he Hari? Because he takes away. He takes away your suffering, takes away your mind, and he takes away your heart. He steals your heart. So he's very attractive. So, what this verse says, Nishvasena hi vishvaso kada buddho bhavishyati kirtani matabalyad harinama kevalam. Remember that our final breath may come at any time, no matter if we're old and sick. are in our youthful prime. So young and old alike should chant the name incessantly, the holy name of Shri Hari, surely all that be. This is why I say I've come to the conclusion that of the 4 regulative principles, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, and no intoxication, the one that everyone thinks is the easiest, no gambling, well, that's good. I don't go to the casinos, you know. That's the hardest one. Because every time that we forget Krishna, we're thinking, well, I get enough time. You know, I can be Krishna conscious. We're risking that we won't die at that moment, you see. But this is one of the things, the things of the Shastra. You know, we should be. That's why Prabhupada always, you know, says, and it's inconceivable, how can we do that? To chant Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours a day. How to do that? Sleeping and all these different things. But the point is to come to the point of unbroken remembrance, abhismriti. This is what this movement is all about. And especially, you know, when you get some warning. I mean, I've been present, they asked me to come and chant, you know, devotees. I've been here almost 35 years. In July, I'll be for 35 years. So over that time, we've had several devotees pass away. And several of them, at least half a dozen, have asked me to be there chanting at that time. Because that's all auspicious. That's one of the great benefits of devotee association, sadhu sangha, is that you're fighting with your mind and the pain and all these different things, and you know that may be there. But if you're surrounded by devotees chanting, then within all of that you can still remember Krishna. You see, so that's another great importance of having good association. So anyway, this is just one verse describing and how we can remember Krishna. Now, if we remember this verse, how can we forget Krishna? You go outside and there's the wind and there's the air, and you say, oh, I remember that verse, Krishna is all the great Lord, it's all resting within Him because it's all His energies, you see. That's the idea. So, any questions on this verse or anything else we talked about?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Question. Trying to phrase it in words. So if His will creates everything, He sustains everything, and ultimately everything goes within Him, why does He play this game?
Because He doesn't want to. It's because we're rebellious. We're somehow or other, and this is the only way. You can't. There's no. Why would we ever leave Goloka Vrindavan if it was so nice up there? Because, you know, we are the few. We are the minority. Most of the living entities aren't so silly. They just stay up there. They're with Krishna. But because a certain percentage of living entities, and we're among them, want to try to compete with Krishna, it comes into our mind. Rather than be servants and be focused on what will please Krishna the most, we're thinking, oh, I've got these senses, you know, maybe I can enjoy. And so as soon as that thought comes, as soon as that desire comes, if we persist, then we lose that association. And that's what this world is for. This world is under the control of Durga Devi, right? This is Maya energy. Durga means a prison. Literally, Durga, can't go. Dur means difficult to go, you know. So what is it that's keeping us imprisoned here? Our own mind. Our own desires. And we should always remember that we're very fortunate to have a human body. All those millions of, you know, not just species, but examples of the species. I mean, summer's coming and we're starting to get little bugs, you know, walking around. And usually the devotees see that we try to pick them up and throw them out in the garden so we don't crush them, you know. But there's this countless living entities who are just as much spirit souls as we are. And who have done some sinful thing that, you know, they lost the human form of life, they go down, and then up they come, and eventually they come back in. But the reason is because we wanted it. We wanted a separate world where we could try to enjoy.
So it was our choice.
Huh?
It was our choice.
It was our choice, you know. What is Krishna going to do with us? If we're up there and we're not happy, and we're envious of Krishna, we're going to create a bad vibe. But everything in Goloka Vrindavan is to be completely within, you know, everything there loves Krishna and is just praying for some kind of service that they can do. And that's bringing extraordinary happiness. We have to really understand that. That is the source of the greatest bliss. to be taking one's pleasure in the pleasure of the Lord. This is why we get a taste of that. This is the great gift of the Hare Krishna mantra. If you just suspend your disbelief for a half an hour and go to an artik and try to get absorbed in that chanting, you're going to feel some, a little dollop of bliss, at least. You're going to feel happier and more peaceful, and there's going to be some experience there. And if you really get into it, it'll be enough to bring you back. You see? This is what Krishna said, and to learn about it. What is it? Because for those minutes, or let's say it's half an hour, you're absorbed in the sound, you're hearing the sound. Of course, the mind may be wandering here and there, but basically you're hearing it, you're seeing Krishna, this fragrance of the incense. You're connected. And so that's the perfection is that at every moment of your life, even when sleeping, you're thinking of Krishna and remembering Krishna. I just came across a verse, there's so many, many of you, I don't know, how many people here have heard of HG Dravida Dasa? Okay, that's not a problem. HG Dravida Dasa was, actually he was in this temple for some time, but back in the 70s. We were friends. He was one of these people who's a real genius, very smart, but also quite eccentric. So he was an eccentric devotee in some ways. But he taught himself Sanskrit. And if you go to LA, you'll see on the corner of Venice Boulevard, which is the main thoroughfare, and Watseka Avenue, which is where the temple is, there's a building on the south side of the street that housed the whole the old Bhaktivedanta Book Trust staff. And that's where, back in 75, I came there. I lived there for 3 years in LA, in that building. And there was a marathon, a book production in May, June of 75, where Prabhupada, he's giving his life airs. He's getting up at 12 at night when everything is quiet, and he's dictating these books. It's 78-year-old man, 90, and he's just giving his life for us. And I was in New York, and we were putting the books out, but we were doing it too slow. There was various problems I won't get into. So the whole thing was consolidated in LA, and after, this is a wonderful story. So after we get settled in, maybe say beginning of April, say, then Prabhupada comes. And I wasn't on this morning walk. He would go on a morning walk with his leaders, And so the main manager of the press was there, and the GBC was in charge and everything. He was on that walk, and they were, behind the main walk on the beach, Venice Beach, and they were conferring. And finally, they came up to Prabhupada and said, because books had come out, like 4 books we put out. The 4th canon, the whole 4th canon was in 4 books at that time. It took us a whole year, which was disastrous. It had to go much faster than that. So the Ramaswar is the name. He went to Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we have figured it out. We can put out 2 books every month. That's 24 books. That's quite an increase. Prabhupada stopped the walk. He had his cane, and he put it into the sand. He would do this. You have to there were 17 books that were unprinted. You have to produce all 17 books in 2 months. Ramasa said, Prabhupada, that's impossible. And Prabhupada, he said these famous words that then reverberated all over the ISKCON world. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. You have to do it, otherwise you're disqualified. So anyway, it's a long story. It's amazing what happened. One of the ladies who was part of it is now working on the deities. I don't know if she's at this moment working on the deities, maybe. But her name is Dhriti. If you see some of her paintings, she and her husband worked on paintings together. Some of the most beautiful paintings. I don't know if there's one here that she did. But she has done and is doing tremendous service. So she was part of it because all those paintings have to be done for the books. You know, you look at the books, there's paintings, right? So that has to be done. They figured that's going to be, we won't be able to do it if we just have paintings. So they gave one guy enough money to go to India, buy a motorcycle, and then travel around India to the places, because the books are mostly the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and go to the places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and take pictures. And we can put those in the books also. We won't have to do so many paintings, you know. So that was part of it. Anyway, I got to work on some chapters in the Antya Leela. There I am, 2 years in the movement. You know, that was almost 50 years ago. And I'm working on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and not just the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but the Antya Leela. You know, working on these wonderful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. I said, boy, what did I do to get that in my last life? You know. So it was a tremendous, effort, and it actually affected the whole movement, because that impossible is a word in the Fool's Dictionary, that reverberated everywhere. But book distribution was just becoming on, and that itself was impossible, to distribute 100 books in a day, or But devotees took great encouragement from that and said, okay, even though it seems impossible, I'm going to do it, because the devotees in LA, they were able to put out those 17 books, like that. So I'm not sure exactly how I got on that, but the point is there is a spiritual energy, and if you're moved by that, then your whole outlook on life changes, who you are, what is, and what's the goal of your life. There's actually a meaning to it. And it's not just that I'll work very hard, I'll try to get this and try to get that, and then I'll die and have another life. And No. I'm gonna try to follow all the principles and cultivate this consciousness, so that I can not come back and go back to Godhead. And the wonderful thing is, even if you fail, you don't fail, because unlike everything material, right? They have these billionaires, these guys who have more than $100 billion. You can even think about that. It's obscene. Can you imagine how many wonderful temples could be built for that? But what's going to happen? Eventually the moment will come when Krishna, Mrityu Sarvaharas Chaham, Krishna says in the 10th chapter, as death I take it all away. But he doesn't take away your advancement of Krishna consciousness. That you keep with you, because that's with the soul, see? So whatever you are able to do, and we should try to do as much as possible and sincere, that will be your eternal asset. Everything else is just, all the material stuff you do, that's a burden on you and taking you to who knows where. But your Krishna consciousness progress is an eternal asset. And so we should be very greedy for that. There used to be a movie, and hopefully none of you saw it. This was way back before I joined. And one of the mottos was "Greed is good." It was about this thing of some movie about Wall Street, right? So that's true, but it all depends on what you're greedy for. If you're greedy for money, it's not good. It's one of the gates to hell. Krishna says, "Trivadam nadakaste dam dwaram nasanamatma kama krodha tata lobhas tasmarita turangajay." Greed for material things is a tremendous burden on the soul. But we have to be greedy. So there's a verse. And from this verse, the first line is where Prabhupada got the idea of the phrase Krishna consciousness. Yes. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikatopi labhyate tattva laulyam api mulyam ekalam janma koti sukatayana labhyate. Krishna bhakti rasa. That is the relationship with Krishna, loving relationship exchange in Bhakti Yoga. Bhavitamati means the mind absorbed in Krishna Bhakti Rasa, in remembering or planning or actually executing some service for Krishna. This is Krishna Bhakti Rasa. So it's the most valuable thing, you see. And if you can buy it somewhere, you should do it, But what's the price? Your greed for it, your intense desire for it, you see. And how do you get that desire? By association with those who have it. Like anything else. You can go on the downside. How do you become a drug addict? Because your friends, oh, come on, let's go get high. You say, okay. Before you know it, you're entangled. But if your friend says, come on, let's go to the Hare Krishna temple. Nah, come on. Try it out. It's really blissful. So you go and say, oh, this is pretty fun. Whoa, that food is amazing. What is that anyway? Let me try. I'm going to come back for the sweet rice anyway. So that's to be in good fortune, and we were all fortunate. We have the chance. We just have to cultivate it, and we need enthusiasm, patience, and determination. This is Rupa Goswami in his Nectar of Instruction. It's a very small book, but very important book. Okay, so I don't have to worry about 8:15. Everyone know there's no darshan tonight. Okay, so let's go on. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakatim yanti mamikam kalpakshihe punasthani kalpados visvajamyaham. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. Now, Prabhupada would use this word millennium in kind of an expansive way. He gave it a unique meaning. Millennium literally means 1,000 years. But Prabhupada, it means an age or an era. This is a lot longer than 1,000 years. Purport: the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material cosmic manifestation are completely dependent on the supreme will of the personality of God. End quote. At the end of the millennium, unquote, means at the death of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years of his time, and his one day is calculated at 4,320,000,000 years. We left out the 20 million, but it's kind of like a rounding error with that when you get up that high. 4,320,000,000 of our earthly years. His night is of the same duration. So when Prabhupada talks about one day, he's talking about 12 hours. He's talking about this way. So there's a day and a night, 24 hours. It's 8,640,000,000 years. That's one day. His month consists of 30 such days and nights, and his year of 12 months. After 100 such years, when Brahma dies, the devastation or annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again wound up in himself. Then again, when there is a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. Bahu Shyam. Although I am one, I shall become many. This is the Vedic aphorism, Chandogya Upanishad 623. He expands himself in this material energy, and the whole cosmic manifestation again takes place. So when Brahma sleeps at the end of his day, that's an annihilation too. But it's not a complete annihilation. Then all the living entities who are in the universe, they merge into the body of Garbo Dakashaya Vishnu. Now these long names, you can easy to understand. We'll just take it apart. Udaka Shai means resting in the ocean. Udaka is the ocean Shai. But there's three different ones. These are called the Purusha avatars for creation. And the first one is Mahavishnu, or Karano Dakashaya Vishnu. Karana Udaka means the causal ocean. Karana is cause, and Udaka is ocean. So this is Mahavishnu there in the corner, and he's resting there, sleeping, breathing in and out. And when he exhales, all these universes are manifested. They emanate from the pores of it, from his nostrils, breathing, and just in one breath, the whole manifestation takes place, and he expands as Garbo Dakashaya Vishnu. Garba literally means a fetus, and Udaka Shai. So there's a in each universe, there's this Garbo Dakashaya Vishnu. Now, where did the water come from? From his own perspiration. So he's resting on it just like a fetus. And he's what is his function? From his navel, the lotus grows, and Brahma appears on the top. This is his birth. That's why it's an unusual birth. He's called Swayambhu, self-born, kind of like that. So this is where the creation is going on. And then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he also expands into Chirodakshaya Vishnu. Everyone knows about Kheer, that nice thick milk product we have. So he's resting on an ocean of milk, this Chirodakshaya Vishnu, on a planet, Dhruvaloka, which is a Vaikuntha planet, in the material world. And he expands into the heart of everyone as a super soul. So you got Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Chirodakshaya Vishnu, the super soul. And in this way, Krishna is all-pervading. And in long, long times, these manifestations take place, they last, and then they're destroyed, and they're unmanifest for a long time. And this is how it's going on. So we've seen so many of those creations and uncreations. So, at night is the same duration. His month consists of 30 such days and nights, year of 12 months. After 100 such years, when Brahma dies, the devastation or annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again wound up in himself. Then again, when there is a need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. Bahu Syam. And I think we went through this. So what's being stressed here is that his will is working. Krishna's will is working, not necessarily directly. This is the wonderful thing. Krishna himself is playing eternally in Goloka Vrindavan, but he expands as Balaram. Balaram expands as Sankirtan, and then there's these four, Vasudev, Sankirtan, Bhajamnani, Ruda, and from that Sankirtan is manifest the Mahavishnu. And so it's just one expansion after another. And they're all, Krishna in one sense, but they're one and different. And they have all these powers, and they're managing the universe, the creation and the maintenance and then the destruction. And the super soul, he's giving us intelligence of what to do so we can live and so forth like that. But at the same time, the purpose of it all is that we can, some of us can become enlightened and act in such a way that we can go back to our original home and get rid of all of this, relative activity. I mean, the human body is, I'd like to say, the human body is proof that God exists. Such a complicated machine. So, and such regulation, to keep the right temperature going on, the balance on the and someone thinks, oh, this automatically happened? No, obviously there had to be a higher intelligence to engineer all this and figure it out. The brain, they can't figure out how the brain is working really, This is all these things going on. So we're the beneficiary of this incredible gift of the human form. So let's utilize it properly and make progress in this path of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, we can go on. We don't have to worry about 8:15 so much. Prakatim svama vastabhya visvajami punak punaha bhuta gramam mimam kritsnam avashang prakate vishat. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. Purport. This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahatattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes, and into each universe the Lord again enters as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. This sounds like just what I was talking about. I swear I didn't look ahead. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Chirodakashaya Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature, and as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animal, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created, because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasham that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. Avasham means helplessly, really. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by his will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of God, and after creating different species of life, he has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. Not directly involved, but he's intimately involved as Super Soul. You see this whole idea. I'm sorry, I'm kind of a little senile, so I forgot the story I was telling. I'm going to go back to talking about Kushakrata. You remember Kushakrata? Because he was a genius, although he was kind of eccentric. He stayed here. I heard about this. This was before this was in the 70s where he lived here. And he would go out on book distribution, and he always wore a sweatshirt, So he wouldn't really approach the people. He would just stand on the corner and get the books. He didn't do that big, He would just go out. He was his mind was elsewhere. So anyway, his strength was that he was a super genius. So he taught himself Sanskrit. And after the production of the books, after Prabhupada had disappeared, and of course they worked a little more, but in all the books that he left, there was a couple of little books. So there wasn't much going on in the Sanskrit department. He was the Sanskrit department at that time, in 78, say. So he decided to use his Sanskrit skills in translating some of the works of the Goswamis. So the first one he picked was the Stavamala. Stavamala means a garland of verses for Krishna, written by Rupa Goswami. Exquisite Sanskrit. So I'm living there with him, and I had a propensity from childhood. My father raised me as a musician, to play flute and this and that, Yeah. And he was a drummer. And, there's a certain genetic thing with that. I had always a sense of rhythm, And so suddenly I discovered, it wasn't at that time, it was earlier, when I was in Brooklyn, the wonderful variety of meters, chanda, in the Sanskrit language. It's part of the wonderful quality of Sanskrit. You can't do all that in English. So he started translating this, and he would show me the verses. Oh, this is a great verse. Keep translating, like that. Later on in his little books that he published, said, I want to thank Dravida Das, who would not would not let me not translate. He would say, you must translate like this. So anyway, recently I came across some verses that I hadn't chanted in many years, and this is just one of them, and I'll show you how. So he says, Purushottamasya padito go kuta chaditamate nikutaseka premamadandasyandantanodanamachittamakanda. Now, I didn't put this into a poem yet, maybe I will someday. So Purushottamasya is of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Purusha Uttama. Padito gokula charitamritena kutaseka. May the mango tree of my mind be ever sprinkled with the nectar of the childhood pastimes of Krishna. Can you imagine what an image that is, right? Purushottamasya padito gokula charita. Gokula charita is the pastimes in Gokula. Amritena, Kritaseka, maybe it's sprinkled. Prema Madandasandam. And then the blossom, that tree of my mind will blossom, and from those mango blossoms will trickle the makaranda, the flower nectar of pure love of God. This is one verse. But anyway, this is what, and the thing is, just the sound vibration itself, just to absorb yourself in that, and just like in Prabhupada's books and there's so many descriptions, it's pleasing. It's not like reading some material novel or something, because Krishna, when he sees that, it's in the books, he becomes pleased. He's in the heart. He knows what's going on. He says, oh, they're chanting about me, and he gives you some pleasure like that. So this kind of pleasure doesn't depend on a lot of money or anything, It just depends on your intelligence and your attention. And if you want to learn how to chant those verses, I can help you. I have a lot of recordings I can also give you, And also the Veda base, Veda base, not the IO Veda base, but the one that you can get for free online. I'm closely, I worked for years with the archive, so I sent up some of those. Not the Stavamala yet, but the Lila Chanda. This is a wonderful book. Lila Chanda means, I guess, Chanda verses describing Krishna's Lila pastimes, just the Vrindavan Lila. You see, and I'm sorry, I forgot I put some poetry into the introductory verses. I'll give you those maybe next time you come. But it begins with a wonderful verse about the holy name, which is one of the first verses I put into poetry. So it says, Jiya nama marare prema madandasya nabhimadabindam babadiyada basopi svachadam mukti muktaya. Oh, glories to the holy name of Krishna, Mura's foe, Murari. Oh, glories to the holy name of Krishna, Mura's foe, that name's a blooming lotus, with ambrosia overflowing, the soothing balm of love of God to cure all pain and woe. Just a dim reflection of that name, even slightly glowing, is like a drop of purest rain that falls within an oyster shell and brings about the pearl of liberation from this earthly hell. Anyway, that was one of my first, maybe, So, anyway, the point is there is a treasure. The Bhagavatam itself is a treasure of nectar verses, beautiful, the prayers of the gopis, we can sing those prayers of the gopis. Tavakatarmatam tapta jivanam kavabadiditam kalmashapaham shavanamangalam shimadatam bhubigunandiye buddhidajana. I didn't, no poem yet, but they're saying, oh, the nectar of talks about you are the life and soul of the people who are suffering in this material world. Certainly those who are spreading your glories throughout the world are the most munificent welfare workers. All the book distributors know this verse. because they're just trying to do that. But anyway, I just encourage you to, this world, it all depends on the sound, beginning with the sound of the holy name. And when you saturate your mind with that sound, and you use your intelligence to understand it, and you can memorize these verses, it becomes a perpetual source of happiness. And it doesn't cost anything. It's free. You take wherever you go. And even at the time of that final time of death, if you're hearing the holy name and chanting, you can feel so peaceful. We've had experience with some of these devotees. I've been at their bedside, And the funny thing is, I worked at the hospital before I joined as an inhalation therapist, and I thought a lot of people die, at a certain point. And it's always a wrenching experience, Mostly they sedate them because they're too disturbed and frightened, like that. But if you really know by your own experience that you're not this body, you're a spirit soul, and you're able to remember Krishna, and you have a whole, devotees helping you, then it doesn't have to be a miserable experience. And we had one lady who grew up here. I remember her name was, everyone knows Yamuna Patti, who's been around, his daughter, and Parashakti is her daughter also. They were married. Wonderful girl. Gora, her name was. And I lived right next to them when she was 5 years old, and then she learned to play the flute, and then she went away to school and everything. And then she went on the Polish tour with Indra Swami. And her bhakti began to flower again, and she took initiation. And she came back and she married one of our alumni here, Bhishma Dev, who was part of the whole Brahmachari crew in the aughts and the 11 up to, teens, 20 teens. And they moved to Alachua, and they didn't have any children, but I would visit them every 6 months or so. I would visit Alachua, and they would invite me to lunch, like that. And then we heard, she came down with cancer and this and that. Oh my God, So Yamuna flew out there, and Parashakti flew out there, And I called a couple of times, and I was sharing some of the poetry, There's these the Govinda Lilamrita. There's two songs. The parrots, the male and female parrot sing, And the female parrot is singing Kunkamakta Kanchanam Jagava Hari Goraba Pitanachi Tabjaganda Kirti Nindi Soraba Ballavesha Suna Sava Vanchitarta Sadika Maya Matma Pada Purna Dasa Dasta Radhika. So I'm singing on the phone, and then I give the poem. Her gold complexion steals the pride of golden lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Shri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. And then, of course, then I have to do the one to Krishna, otherwise Radharani will be angry with me. Ambudanjananda nila nindikanti dambada kunkamoja rata vidyarangsha divya dambada Srimadangi charchitendu pita nakta chandana swang vidasi dostu mesu balla vendranandana. His dark complexion mocks mascara, sapphires, and a blackish cloud. His garments shine like reddish rising sun with lightning bolts endowed. With sandal paste enhanced with camphor are his handsome limbs replete. May Nanda Sun bestow on me the service of his lotus feet. Sorry. May Nanda Sun bestow on me the service of it. So there's 8 of each, and I would read them to her over the phone, But it's very absorbing. And these are the treasures we've been given. These Goswamis, Shiva Goswami, his exquisite Sanskrit. He wrote a book called Gopal Champu, which is Krishna's pastime, but expanded with his realizations, and full of songs, And so that's available by this Kushakrata Prabhu. He translated them. And they're free. I'll give them to you. But first, let's really get schooled in the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. All right, have a little time here. Where were we? Prakatim Tvamavastastu, text 9. Nachamang tani karmani nabadnandi janandaya. I'm sorry. Text, page 387. Nachamang tani karmani nabadnanti dhananjaya. Udasinam vadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. O Dhananjaya, we learn here, O conqueror of riches. Okay. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Purport. One should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita 5.6, it is stated, Atma Rama Sitasyasti Prakritya Nasamagamaha. He is always involved in his eternal blissful spiritual activities, but he has nothing to do with these material activities. Close quote. Material activities are being carried on by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word udasinavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into jail, someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth, but still, he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2.134, it is stated, Vaishamya Nayagrinye No. He is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities. Nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them. So this idea, Prabhupada says here at the beginning, one should not think in this connection that the Supreme Lord, this Personality of Godhead, has no engagement. So there's a verse that Prabhupada would often chant, Tassikaryam karanam cha vidyate. And this he would say that God has nothing to do. But what he means by that is that God doesn't have to do anything. You see? He doesn't have to do. There's no one can give him an assignment to do. He's giving all these assignments, you know. But he's free. He's the order giver. So and so he has so many engagements, dancing with the gopis and playing in Vrindavan, you know, and like that. And so he does all these things, but the motive of doing them is just to enjoy, and to give enjoyment to all his friends and his mother and so forth. Like when we have the Kartik month, right? The Kartik season. So then we sing this song and we meditate on this pastime. You see that there's Mother Yashoda is binding Krishna. You can see that. And there's a devotee here from the old days, from the 70s and 80s, I think he was. And he was here when they redid the temple, you know, and they made all this. So he pointed this out to me, and no one ever notices this. You know, I didn't notice it. I was here for 20, 30 years. There's something missing in that painting. Where's the mortar? Where's the thing she's binding him to? I forgot to put it in. But the point of the mood is, Krishna's afraid. Krishna's afraid. How can he be afraid? But he's taking this role of a little child to enjoy that mood of being loved by his mother and giving that, you know, love. It's the most delightful pastimes. That God can cover his majesty so that his intimate devotees can have this intense loving relationship. And it doesn't end. She doesn't get old and die. He doesn't get old and it goes on forever. And it's not like hackneyed. There's all these varieties in it. You know, it's every day is new. Everything is new. So this is what bhakti is all about. This knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita is like preliminary knowledge. It's important knowledge to understand Krishna's position in the universe, how things are going on, where we fit in, you know. But most importantly, how we can get out, how we can return, as Prabhupada said 1,000 times, go back home, back to Godhead. Very important. It means that we came from there. We don't belong here. This is alien for us. Even though we may think we have a nice situation, okay, it's idyllic. You know, I've got it made. I'm living in San Diego. I got a house on the beach. Whew, I made it. Did we really make it? I mean, even the way things are going, will the ocean rise? It might. If they melt Antarctica, which they're trying to do. I'm not making it up. So there's no place of, you know. We even had a hurricane scare here. By the way, those who came later, the curtains will not open. So, you know, we're not going to have an artique tonight. They'll go in a little later. We'll end in a few minutes. You know, they warned us about a hurricane. We didn't have a hurricane. I've been here so many years. They would all go out to sea. Now it's coming up the coast, you know, Baja, it's coming right at us. And I think they gave us extra warning because the late week before, they had a hurricane in Hawaii, which they didn't warn them enough about, and some people died with fires and everything. So better to have more warning than not enough. So they said, yes, right here in San Diego, you be careful, you know, like that. So I said, okay, I'll stay home. I think I skipped the morning, you know, I looked out my window. The hurricane, where's the hurricane? It was drizzling. There was no wind, you know. Okay. There's a San Diego hurricane. But there are hurricanes just blowing up in Miami. They're heating the oceans. My God, you know, it's all from the Ugra karma. You know, burning all the billions of cars, and everyone knows. You know, you can't do it. But okay, we've known what we have to do, right? We have to stop that. But they can't stop because there's too much money to be made. Exxon, Mobil, they knew about this in the early 80s. Their scientists, you know, they employ the best scientists telling, no, it's going to be heating up the atmosphere. So what was their response? You think they would, you know, go to the government, okay, we're going to, no. We'll pay scientists to say that there's some doubt about it. We don't know about it. You know, in other words, how can they make the most money? That's all they live for. This is demonic. Read 16th chapter. You know, it's right here, Bhagavad Gita. Simply be concerning. Krishna, he imitates the demons in there. He has the mantra of the demons. I only know 2 lines of it. Famous lines. Ishwaroham aham bhogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. You can figure out which famous figure matches this mood. I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. That's demonic. And they all get cut down. Few, the fortunate ones by Krishna personally, but mostly just by the material energy. You can't be happy in that mood, you know, because you're not the Ishvara, you're not the original enjoyer. It's all a fake position. So to be true to ourselves, we need to learn to be humble devotees of God. And that's the strongest position. Prahlad Maharaj, they call him Prahlad Maharaj, he was a 5-year-old boy, Prabhupada likes to go. He eventually became Maharaj. He had no weapons, he had nothing, you know, just a 5-year-old boy. His father was this powerful demon, took over the whole universe. Hiranyakashipu, you know. That means, it's a nickname actually, you know, kind of. Gold and soft bedding, you know. And Prabhupada said, and the bed companion, you know, we know what that is. So this is the demonic mentality. So Prahlad was just his son. He didn't know his son was a great devotee because he was taught in the womb by Narada Muni, the greatest of all devotees. So he's raising him and he thinks, oh, he's going to be a nice demon. Maybe he'll take over the kingdom for me, you know. So Prahlad, what did you learn today? What's the best thing? You know, no report cards. And then, so he says, oh, yes, he didn't call him father. He called him, what is it? Anyway, Sudavarya, the best of the demons. Tat sadhu manyaya Sudavarya dehinam sadasa buddvignadiyama sadgrahat hitvatma patam griyamandakupam vanam gatoya dharamashriyeta. This is the first thing he said to his father, you know. He said, what is this? He said, Father, so what it means is, this is the best thing, Father. The sadhu manya, in my opinion. Oh, best of the demons. Sudavarya, best for whom? Dehinam, the embodied soul. For us, who are sadasamudvigna dhyama sadgrahat, whose consciousness is always disturbed, you know, many times, often, because we've taken shelter of something which is a sat, the material body. It's like you're out on the boat, you know, I give this analogy all the time. The boat out here, and suddenly it springs a leak. Oh my God, you know, we can get back to land. Well, luckily we have these life preservers. So the boat's going down, okay, now we're floating in the life preservers. And then you find that the life preserver has a leak. And, you know, it can only last for 6 minutes. Oh my God. You know, that's a sadgrahat, holding on for dear life to that which is dissolving. That's the body. This body is not you know, and your body and the money and the family and whatever you have is all fallible. It's all, you know, changing. So therefore, all this anxiety. So what to do? For 2 lines, he described the material. Hitvatmapatam griyamandakupam vanam gatoyad hadamashriyeta. And he says, give up he characterized it, this blind well of materialistic life, and go to the forest. What forest? Vrindavan forest. That's in the commentaries. And take shelter of Hari. That was like hitting a snake, because Hiranyakashipu's arch enemy was Hari, who had killed his brother Hiranyaksha in the form of a boar. You know, this whole thing. So he's arch enemy. You know. So suddenly he has a son. The demon has a son who's a devotee. Said, but he's only 5 years old. Okay, well, the teachers will get it out of him. You know. It goes on like that, and no, he becomes seditious. He's teaching all his friends in the classroom about devotion, and they're listening to him. Finally, his father says, "Oh, you're like a poison tree." So he gives him to a henchman to kill him, and he's completely peaceful, and he's just completely absorbed in Krishna. They can't hurt him. They do everything. They try to crush him on an elephant. They try to cut him up with swords. They try to poison him, crush him under the elephant, and boil him in oil. And not only didn't he feel any pain, he was unharmed. And that really freaked out his father. Uh-oh, what is this? That's a tremendous strength. It may be defensive, but it's tremendous, is it? So he says, oh, okay, one more chance. So then finally again he asked him, what did you learn? Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevan. That's it. These are the 9 processes of devotion. So that was the last straw. So he said, that's when he said, okay, kill him. He couldn't kill him. What to do? You know, so finally his father said, all right, I'm going to have to kill him myself. And he said, you've always said there's some, you know, God. Where is that God? You know, is he everywhere? Yes, Father. Oh, is he in this pillar? Yes, Father. He's there also. Are you kidding? Boom! He smashed it with the sword, and who comes out? You know, Nrsingadev. Half man, half lion, roaring in anger at his poor, you know, his booty. So he played with him for a few minutes, and then boom, he put him on the. He had a blessing. I won't go through all the details, but he had to meet the criteria of the blessings because it was given by Brahma, and he killed him in the doorway with his nails, just ripped them apart. So that's and all the devotees were very blissful because the demon was killed. All right, I'm going to let you go because it's after 8:30. But thank you for being so patient, and we'll resume on Monday. You're all invited. And if you want any poems, I also have a whole bunch of recordings. I recorded the whole Bhagavad Gita. You can have it for free. Just write to me again. I think I already gave it to you. Yeah, and recordings in the classes also. Our friend Tapas, the whole Bhagavad Gita you have. You know, that's so it's all available. All that's missing is your desire. Hare Krishna. Okay, there is prasadam, I assume, available outside.